Greetings and welcome to this review video of Wingspan, the board game solo mode. Now, I have to preface by saying this will not be a very monstrous review, as there aren't really monsters included here, but there are birds, there are animals. And if you ever wonder why I started World of Monsters, well, it all started with my love for wildlife, for animals. And I wanted to explore animals that weren't explored yet, to present them with our knowledge and what we've learned about the animals of Earth and try to make sense of all the fantastical creatures out there. But nonetheless, we're going to be covering it in 7 different categories. There's not going to be a minis category since there aren't minis really involved in the game. It is pretty hot out there. A lot of people know about it, so I think you should know about it as well and how good it could be for you as a solo game. Now remember, I go through each category, and at the end, the last category, which would be the 8th one here, I believe, is my personal preferences. And in that category, I go over different things, adding and subtracting points, and you can join me along with that to make the final scoring more relevant to you. This game includes 170 species of birds. I totally respect that. And that's out of 914 species in North America alone. This is what would be regarded as a engine building game with some set collection. It has a nice solo mode that is prepared there, and it is a point-based game. So meaning that at the end of the game, you're going to be adding up, tallying up all the points you've earned into a final score to see if you beat the opponent, which in this case would be the AI. So for the first category, we're going to be talking about the quality of the game, all the components and everything involved, all the prints within it. Even the box outside has a texturing to it. There's a lot of attention to detail, as I mentioned, with each card. Dice are wooden in it. As for storage and all that, that works great because your storage tray is also your organization tray. So you're going to put your cards over here that you're going to be able to draw, and then inside you can actually store all those cards, and you're drawing the cards from here. There are the little bird eggs featured in the game with the pastel colors with a nice texturing, and they kind of have that eggshell level of gloss to them. And the different colors of them aren't even necessary because all eggs work the same, so you can just have one egg color and it'd be fine. I would say that the dice tower almost brings this game to a premium level of quality. It isn't just a nice addition and nice quality feature in the game, but it also has purpose other than just throwing dice, as dice rolled within the tray or outside of the tray have a different purpose. With that, I'm going to have to give, for quality, a 3 out of 4 to Wingspan. Next up is table space. So you have your main player board, your kind of mat, where you line up the cards as you're building your engines. So that means for a single player, it's actually not too bad of a space table hog of a game. They utilize the space on those boards pretty good for the most part. That end of round goal sheet could be, that little board could be a little bit smaller. You'll also want to keep your rulebook nearby, as well as the appendix. The appendix is going to feature explanations for different rules, so that's 2 booklets that you're also going to want to keep handy. Also a little pamphlet for solo play. That's about a 2-page pamphlet. So for table space, I'm going to have to give Wingspan a 3 out of 4, as things can get pretty all over the place, especially for the solitaire sort of game that it is. And so I do believe it could be tightened a bit, and so for that, I cannot give it a full 4 out of 4. I believe that the setup is actually really, really good, and the organization is great. You have little trays. You have the main tray for the cards. You have trays for all the eggs, and you're using those trays for storing the eggs in the box and then to keep them organized on the table. Actually, I'm going to have to, for setup, give Wingspan a full 4 out of 4. For the size Wingspan is, the setup is really not that intimidating. If you want to get that one game in before you head out somewhere or before bed and you're worrying about tiring yourself out with all these components, it's really not that bad. So with that, let's move on to the next category, which is going to be finickiness. The general what to do next gameplay is not finicky at all, but there is an appendix reference booklet for a reason. And if this isn't your only game, then you're definitely going to want that booklet around. It just clarifies the different abilities, etc., which are pretty simple and easy to remember for the most part, but there are quite a bit of them. And that appendix is really not much of a hassle. It's easy to use, it's organized, it's really no big deal. There may be a time or two where you will have to go online to clarify a rule level or two. But by the time you do that, you will have probably had so much gameplay that it's really not a deal breaker. I'm gonna have to say that this game, Wingspan, scores a 4 out of 4 for finickiness. Well done. As for the next category, satisfying moments, the most dopamine release throughout your gameplays. The engines that you build are easy to do and they run smooth and productively. Hitting the end of round bonuses is simple to figure out where you're standing on them. Even when you're playing with other players, there's not much to count up. It's really a quick process. It gives you that quick little rush to if you are first place on there. There's some cool different bird features, like for example, one that I like is a bird that can live in different habitats, so I can use it in one engine and then move it to another engine to make that engine stronger. There's nothing too exciting as you're playing Wingspan, especially after you've played for a while, but there's also nothing too monotonous. The final scoring is fun and easy, and as I mentioned, there may not be really high satisfying moments, but there's many small ones, and so that adds up to be a pretty enjoyable point add up sort of game. And with all that, for satisfying moments, I have to give Wingspan a 3 out of 4. The Automa system, the AI solo playing system, is really simple, but it is challenging for sure, making for many close games. And a lot of soloers do enjoy those challenging games. As any engine game, you're going to have high points when things come out working for you. But there's really nothing where you just like roll dice and you just stand up and yell. 3 out of 4 I think is fair for satisfying moments. Let's move on to choices. You have 170 bird cards, different species of birds, different artwork, different little details, and different game details. There's nest types that are on each card. There's how many amounts of eggs and points and wingspans those birds have, and all those things I just mentioned, they pretty much have a purpose and rules for the game. And it's information that's just cool to learn, you know, like why not? It's awesome how much attention to detail is done and how this game is organized. 3 different types of engines, so not too many there. There's card abilities that are not many enough. I'd like to see more and more unique and creative abilities. And that's probably what the expansion holds. I haven't played that yet, so I'm just judging the core rules and play. With that, I'm gonna have to say that I'm gonna give Wingspan actually 2 out of 4 for the choices, for the variety there. There is a bit of luck involved, as you can have a very different game by what you're drawing and getting just by luck, and it'll affect your mood definitely. So I think by having different abilities and choices and such would definitely improve upon this being so luck-based at moments. So for Intrigue, how curious, how wanting and desiring are you when you're not playing this game to go back to it, open up that box and throw it on the table? So what the intrigue really is surrounding Wingspan when you're not playing it is, are you going to beat the Automa this time? How strongly are you going to beat the Automa? Are you going to beat it enough to be able to raise the difficulty for your next plays? Stuff like that, rather than any sort of lore. There's not really any lore in the game. You know what to expect. You just want to see how the scoring is going to turn out for you this time. And again, a large part of that is the luck. And so because of that, the more you play, the more the intrigue starts to drop. You know that this game has already a pleasant appearance, so your brain is sort of wanting to see those colors and everything laid out and expecting for that enjoyable experience because of that. For some games that are hard to table, you need a lot of intrigue because there's going to be so much work to lay it out and set up. There's not much of that, but there's also not much intrigue, so you have a different kind of balance going on there. And with that appearance, keep in mind there's also that vast variety of birds, so they're constant new images that are pleasing your brain. For all that, I'm gonna have to give Wingspan a 2 out of 4 for intrigue. And so for the semi-final scoring, out of 28 points, I'm gonna have to give Wingspan a 21 out of 28. That's a strong 75% C. But now, I'm gonna add in some things that I haven't included in the categories that I have to add more points to or subtract. And this is a great point in these reviews for you to join in, and if you agree with my scoring, then either add that point in as well, or if you don't feel on the same page as me with that, you don't care for that part, don't add it or subtract it. So then at the end, we're gonna get you a score that really speaks not just to the general public, but specifically for you. Personal preferences. So first one for me is going to be solo satisfaction. And that means the Automa system, even though simple, it's good, it's nothing amazing, but it does its job well for a point counting sort of game. It has a little clever system of changing things up and being unpredictable in a way that doesn't clutter the table up at all. It's very simple and it works. Next one, I'm going to add another point here, and that is for theme. So hear me out on this, because this is an important one about how much attention to detail and passion went into this game, and I do respect that. This is about the theme being present throughout the gameplay to an impressive point. So every bird, as I mentioned, has a wingspan, they're correct. And then they have how many eggs. They're just like symbols of eggs, so that's how many you can lay down on the card. But those symbols are also relevant to the numbers of how many of those eggs those birds actually lay in real life. That's really well thought out. That's a nice attention to detail. And having the theme of what the game is, it's wingspan, who cares about birds, but then everything has to do with birds. It works. It's just a good, well-designed and organized game. I have to give it definitely that one for theme, if not two, but I'm going to stop it at one. Next one, I have to talk about speed and flow. There's one action per turn, and then the engine building, that's what makes it a bigger turn, but you're really just doing one new action. With that, the game goes really, really smooth. The turns go very quick. The end of round scoring is very simple. It's such a smooth transition. I really do appreciate that. For the last one, this is an optional one. I'm stopping here with my point adding. This one actually is relevant to me. That's why I have it here, but I didn't want to actually affect the scoring with this biasness of what I prefer. I wanted to keep this more of a general presentation. The point is, for this style of game, these add your points up together sort of games are not my preferred style. I do have a few of them and such. For playing with someone else, it works better for me. It's just for me, when I'm playing alone, I like to get more immersed. This kind of play type does work for if you want to pull out a gameplay at once and put it away kind of deal. And so for me, it works for that purpose as well. But as far as my preferred favorite type of games, I think I'm more still into that whole campaign thing and having characters or something that progresses. And so I'm not minusing for that point, but personally, I would. If you agree with that, go ahead and minus that point. I'm going to have to give Wingspan a final score of 24 out of 28, and that is an 86%. That's a strong B. If you're looking for a game that's not point-based, but also not a really in-depth campaign game, I think you should definitely check out my previous board game review video of Village Attacks as a solo game and see how you feel about that one, because if what I described earlier, my preferences, are true to you, that actually might be the game for you, especially one of your early board games in your hobbydom.